Hello all, we are continuing our conversation in chapter 3, really looking at controlling and managing people. An important part of your leadership role is to manage people. And who better to do that than Ted Lasso, right? So, if we could all be like Ted Lasso. Because they are your most valuable resource, you work with each of your people to help them to meet their full potential. You need control systems with objectives and standards and rules. So how well you manage people will determine your success as a leader. This section covers the roles of properly coaching employees, providing positive feedback, and using the proper corrective actions when monitoring employee performance. Many people who hear the word coaching immediately think of athletes, but coaching is also an important sport management skill. Effective coaches can identify any laggards and prevent free riding. So, coaching is also a key focus of business, and companies are training managers to improve their coaching skills. A great boss, like a sport coach, can inspire employees to new heights. Before reading about coaching, complete the self-assessment in 13.1 on coaching. Determine how well you do or can coach people to improve performance. Coaching involves giving motivational feedback to maintain and improve performance. If you've ever had a good coach, think about what he did or she did to maintain and improve your performance and that of other team members. So first, with the coaching model, this is figure 13.6, you want to describe current performance. And you want to use specific examples. Describe the current performance that needs to be changed. You want to tell people in a positive way exactly what they are doing that needs to be improved. Don't say you are always late for work. Do say, Billy, this is the second time this month that you have been late for work. Number 2, describe the desired performance. Tell people in detail exactly what the desired performance is. Explain how they will benefit from following your advice. If the problem is ability related, that it is lack of knowledge or experience, demonstrate the proper way. If the problem is motivational, simply describe the desired behavior and ask the person to state why the behavior is important. And I would say there also you want to find out what their motivation is. What motivates them? What makes them excited about coming to work every day? Ability. Is there some good explanation as to why you are late for work? I understand, but you need to figure out a way to be on time. Why is it important to be on time? Get a commitment to the change. When the issue is ability, it usually isn't necessary to get a verbal commitment to the change if the person seems willing to make it. However, if the person defends the action and you're sure it's not effective, explain why your proposed way is better. If you cannot get the person to understand and agree, get a verbal commitment. This step is also important if the issue is motivation. If employees are not willing to commit to a change, they will most likely not make the change. So if it's ability and motivation, will you be on time for work in the future? And number 4, follow up. Remember, most employees will do what managers inspect. It's called imposed control, not what they expect. Therefore, you're doing both yourself and the employee a favor by following up to ensure that change is occurring as desired. In ability situations, and if the person was receptive in step 3, you don't have to say anything. Just watch to be sure the task is done correctly and in the future. Coach again if necessary. And motivation situations clearly state that you will follow up and that there are consequences if performance doesn't improve. So ability and motivation. Billy, if you're late again, I will have to take disciplinary action. Feedback is the foundation of coaching, and it should be continuous, motivational, and developmental. The idea is to give more positive feedback than negative feedback. These are also concepts that you can use with your kids as if you have kids or if you plan to have kids in the future. A culture of positive feedback creates an abundance of enthusiasm and energy in teams and organizations. Cheer your people on with an immediate response to their excellent work. Woohoo! Everybody celebrates. When athletes make good plays, the coach and team cheer them on. The same technique motivates people in the workplace. Ineffective and frustrated managers spend more time criticizing than praising. Managers who only criticize staff undermine their motivation. Unmotivated workers play it safe. They do the minimum. Focus on not making errors and covering up errors to avoid criticism. Not exactly the way you want your team to work. If you find yourself criticizing more often than praising, it's time to consider what you are doing. Remember the Pygmalion effect and give praise following the giving praise model that we talked about in chapter 11. Use this coaching technique daily. Coaching is needed when performance falls below standards of aspiration levels. Remember the performance equation in chapter 11? Use it to analyze the situation. So performance equals ability times motivation times resources. When the person doesn't have the ability to meet the standard, provide the training. She or he needs to be, if she still can't meet the standards, she needs to be let go and replaced. If it's motivation that's lacking, find out why. Talk to the person to gain some insight and develop a plan together using motivational techniques that we used in chapter 11. If you can't motivate them, you may have to use discipline. And with resources, when the employee doesn't have the necessary resources, work to obtain them. Management by walking around. This is coaching focusing on helping employees to succeed by monitoring their performance, giving feedback to praise progress, and redirecting inappropriate behavior. You can extend coaching with management by walking around, or MBWA. It's all about listening, teaching, and facilitating. With listening, if you want to find out what's going on, listen more than you talk and be open to feedback. Learn to talk last and not first. Open with a simple question like, how are things going? Then use the communication skills you developed in chapter 10 as you pry useful information out of everyone. Teaching, it's not about telling people what to do, it's about training. So use job instructional training when needed. Teaching is all about development by empowering employees to solve their own problems. Therefore, coaches say, what do you think should be done and how can we improve? And facilitating. It's all about taking action that helps people do their jobs and to satisfy customers. The focus is on improving the system. Your team members know their jobs and they know, often all too well, the stumbling blocks because they deal with them every day. Your job is to run interference and remove those stumbling blocks so that the team can get on with its business. In managing problem employees, coaching is about fine-tuning the performance of someone who wants to improve. When you counsel and discipline, you are dealing with a problem employee who is not performing to standard or who is violating standing plans. Discipline can make both parties uncomfortable, but it is a necessary part of being a manager. Organizations realize that part of their job is to help employees deal with problems. When most people hear the term counseling, they think of professional therapy. People who are not professional counselors, and that includes managers, should not attempt this level of help. Management counseling is something very differently. It consists solely of recognition and referral. Management counseling helps employees to recognize that they have a problem that is affecting their job performance and then refers them to the Employee Assistance Program. Employee Assistance Programs, or EAPs, help employees to get professional assistance in solving their problems. EAP professional help has a cost, but it also improves performance, making it more of an investment in human capital than an expense. More and more companies are offering EAPs because they improve employee retention and productivity. The San Francisco Giants have one of the best organized EAP programs in professional sport. The program provides work-life and wellness services for ball players and full-time year-round employees, including managers, coaches, scouts, retirees, game day workers, and family members. The EAP is helping them with wellness programs, legal and financial referrals, mental health and substance abuse crisis interventions, and informal consultations. Management counseling is not about delving into someone's personal life. There is a line there that must not be crossed for the employee's sake and also for yours. You don't need to know the details. In fact, it's better that you don't. Knowing too much can hurt your effectiveness as a manager, and it is not your job. Issues of privacy play a big role in these situations. That's why your organization has a separate department, the EAP. So don't give advice. If you do, you're putting both yourself and your organization at risk for litigation. To make the referral, you can say, "Are you aware of our EAP? Would you like for me to set up an appointment with Jean in HR to see if she can help?" If job performance continues to suffer, then discipline becomes an appropriate choice. So coaching, which includes counseling, should generally be the first step in dealing with a problem employee. However, if an employee is unwilling or unable to change, a rule has been broken, or there's misconduct, discipline is necessary. You've taken the coaching route, you've taught and facilitated and fed back positive reinforcements, and you've been down the EAP road and nothing has worked. So what do? You take disciplinary actions. Discipline is corrective action to get employees to meet standards and to follow the rules. Discipline can be effective if it makes the person realize the seriousness of the situation. The primary objective of discipline is to change behavior. Other objectives include letting athletes and employees know that action will be taken when rules are broken or performance standards are not met, and maintaining your authority when challenged. When you find yourself having to take disciplinary action, it's usually time to involve your boss and the HR department to make sure you're disciplined appropriately without violating any company policies or laws. HR procedures outline grounds for specific sanctions and dismissal based on the violation of the employee. See the guidelines for legal and effective discipline. Punishment varies with the violation. Some actions such as theft and sexual or racial harassment result in automatic firing. Many organizations use a series of escalating actions for less serious behavior, such as being late for work, excessive absenteeism, and below standard levels of work. Progressive discipline typically occurs in this order. It's first an oral warning, second is a written warning, and then third is suspension, and fourth, finally, is dismissal to avoid more problems. Documenting each step is extremely important. When you have to discipline someone, follow the disciplining model. The steps shown here in 13.7 set up an effective model for you to use to discipline an employee. These steps would also serve a team well when faced with low performance by a team member. Refer to past feedback. Begin by refreshing the employee's memory. Refer to the coaching or counseling the person has received, or to the fact that the person has been warned about breaking the rule in question. So prior coaching, Billy, remember, are discussing you're being late for work. Second, ask why the undesired behavior was used. Giving the employee a chance to explain the behavior is part of getting all the necessary facts before you discipline. The employee may or may not have justification for the behavior. 2 days ago, you agreed to be on time. Is there a good reason why you're late again today? And then number 3, give the discipline. Review the guidelines set by your HR department and follow them carefully. If there is no good reason for the undesirable behavior or excuses are not accepted for the behavior, give the discipline based on the stage and the disciplinary progression. I'm giving you a verbal warning. That's the first discipline. This concludes our conversation about controlling and managing coaching employees. You should continue to develop your coaching skills and improve your ability to handle problem employees with management counseling and discipline when needed. We're going to continue our conversation along measuring and increasing productivity next. And measuring and increasing productivity, you can improve only what you measure. Measuring productivity can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. Keeping it relatively simple, productivity can be measured by how much is produced in an hour of work, and it can be the output per hour of labor. In this section, we'll outline a simple yet realistic approach that you can use on the job to measure and increase productivity. Productivity measures performance by dividing outputs by inputs. To increase productivity, there are 3 ways. Increase output value and maintain your input value. You can maintain your output value and decrease your input value, or you can increase output value and decrease input value. Kind of the inverse relationship there. Always compare your productivity to the standard and compare productivity during one period to that of previous periods. Productivity during any single period by itself is meaningless, so you want to benchmark. What is important is whether productivity is changing for the better or worse, or whether it is stagnating. Unfortunately, as your level of productivity increases, it often becomes increasingly difficult to continuously improve it. TaylorMade has been successful in a perpetual race to increase the distance or productivity people can hit a golf ball with its golf clubs. Pepsi's Gatorade has a sports science institute to improve Gatorade drinks so that they better enhance athletes' performance. It uses this slogan, studied, tested, and proven. It developed G Sports drinks and more recently protein powders and drinks, bars, and chews and endurance products. Productivity measures are important for another reason. They indicate how well an organization is being managed. Therefore, you should measure functional area productivity as you strive to drive down costs. Measuring the organization's overall performance, you want to look at your financial ratios. They indicate the overall organization performance. They do not measure the performance of the finance area itself. Your profitability ratios are based heavily on sales, which is a marketing function. However, the performance of the other functional areas is affected by how well finance does its job. Finance controls the budget, which helps or hinders the other functional areas. Marketing sells the products on credit and finance through its accounting function, collects the payments, and pays for purchases made throughout the organization. Table 13.4 here lists the ratios that are used to measure functional areas. The numbers used to calculate the functional ratios are taken from the income statement and the balance sheet that we talked about earlier. As indicated in Table 13.4, these ratios are easy to calculate and understand, and they are used commonly as controls. To make meaningful year-to-year comparisons, analysts commonly use 3 to 5 years of data. Marketing and operations in an organization can be likened to the heart and lungs and the body. The key to business success is for these 2 areas, with aid of the other functional areas, to continually increase customer value. If marketing and operations do not work well and do not work well together, the organization may fail to thrive. Gross profit margin and net profit margin are also considered marketing ratios because they are based on sales. Inventory's turnover is primarily the responsibility of operations. However, the operations department depends on marketing sales forecast, which it uses to decide on how much product to produce. If sales forecasts are too optimistic, operations will produce too much product, which will sit in inventory, which decreases the turnover rate. You need to understand types of controls, the control process, and frequencies, and methods of controls. Budgeting is also important. The master budget includes operating budgets, capital budgets, and financial statements. Lastly, you should be able to measure productivity and know how to increase it. And that is all that we have for today. Be sure that you know how to explain how to control functions within the systems process. Understand why feedback is a control, and be able to describe the control process. List which control methods are used with which frequency, and be able to differentiate between static and flexible budgets and between incremental and zero-based budgets. Also be able to explain how capital budgets and operating budgets differ. Be able to state what the 3 basic financial statements entail and use motivational feedback. Be able to understand the role of EAP staff and state 3 ways to increase productivity. Whew, that was a lot of stuff to cover. You take care. I'll see you soon.